While we continue keeping you company this Ramadan, as we head towards the end of Ramadan, and just another 4 days after today, before we see the end of this month of Ramadan. Sadly, because it clearly has kept us on a high in more ways than one, particularly from a spiritual perspective as well. And it's such a beautiful month. It's been such a blessed month. Feeling, the calmness, the mercy, and in more than one sense. But we cannot say the same about Palestine. We cannot say the same about Gaza. And this is the reason why throughout this month of Ramadan, we have brought you voices from Palestine together with the Palestine Solidarity Alliance. And this segment in particular is quite an interesting one because often, we hear about this debate taking place on the Palestinian question, on whether it's a religious issue, is it a humanitarian issue, is it a faith-based issue, and which faith, and from which perspective do you actually look at this? And irrespective of what faith you belong to, at the end of the day, when one looks at this genocide, no religion, no faith will condone what we are seeing. And we've seen it. We've seen the damage that this occupation, not only throughout this genocide, but throughout this entire occupation, what it has actually done to all three major faiths, if one wants to term it the Abrahamic faiths, whether you are Christian, whether you're a practicing Jew, or whether you are a Muslim, all of them have been affected and impacted in some way or the other. And this is the reason why we are talking this afternoon with pastor, with activists, and also social worker from South Africa who has stood for Palestinian liberation for decades. We're talking with Pastor Nigel Branken. Pastor Nigel, good afternoon to you, sir, and an absolute pleasure having you with us this afternoon right here on Salam Media.
Good afternoon and free Palestine. Just want to say thank you. I'm listening to you as you're talking and just thinking about how much weight we're all carrying at the moment. There's a lot going on there.
Well, we certainly are. It's quite a burden. It's a huge burden that we are carrying, but our burden compared to the suffering of the Palestinians for over 7 decades, and especially in the last 18 months with the genocide, is nothing compared to the burden that we are to what they are carrying, Pastor.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's no calmness in Gaza. And isn't it tragic that this latest continuation of the genocide started really at the beginning of Ramadan? It's almost like as if it's intentional to provoke people of faith, and I think that, to me, I remember waking up that morning when Israel started bombing again and seeing the face of a little child looking at the wall. And it was said that he had just been staring at the wall for hours, that he had lost his family, he had lost his whole family. And I looked at him and I remember, just in my own self, just thinking to myself, I felt a bit numb. I felt like I just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm just hearing this news so much that my heart is becoming numbed, that even though I'm looking at this little child, I'm not feeling, so I looked at him and I just said, kind of did a thought exercise to myself. And I said, what if this was my child? And I looked at the child again and I realized this child's actually probably 11, 12, 13. My son's 13. And as I said that in my mind, tears began to flow again. And I started thinking about what I would say to this little child, The whole world has let him down. It's not a religious war, this. We can never say this is a religious war. I think that ethnic cleansing is not a complex issue. Genocide is not a complex issue. This isn't a theological question. This is ethnic cleansing. This is genocide. And although people might try to weaponize their faith to justify it, and certainly in my religion, in the Christian tradition, we have a lot of Christian Zionists who who have really weaponized their faith to stand regardless of what they hear, regardless of the huge human catastrophe that we see in front of us. And they still stand and
It's
say
true.
they stand with Israel.
You know what you're saying, Pastor, is very, very true. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned the term Christian Zionists. And a few years ago, this was unheard of. And I recall not on this media platform, but I used to be on another media platform. And at that point in time, we even spoke about Arab Zionists. So, you speak about Christian Zionists, you're speaking about Arab Zionists, and you're talking about Zionists. And these labels or these terms are starting to feature a lot more prominently because the mere fact that those that are supporting this brutal occupation, this brutal occupier, and they have been supporting this occupier for decades now, at this point in time, or just standing by idly, doing absolutely nothing, like you say, you sat there, shell shocked, horrified, just looking at one face of a child. How many have we seen over the years? How many have we seen over the last 18 months? And again, one cannot, like you mentioned, one cannot blame this on faith because this is about hatred, this is about supremacy, this is about theft of land, this is about ethnic cleansing. And what more can we say, Pastor? What more can I say? Sometimes we ourselves are at a loss of words.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot over the last couple of weeks, we've had, I think it was Monday last week. It feels like everything's just happening so fast that the bombing started again in Yemen. And then on Tuesday morning, we got the news there were 300 odd people dead. By the afternoon, it was 480. And then we found out 200 children. Yesterday, I think it was, we got the news of this young Al Jazeera journalist who's been so brave. I don't know if you've seen some of the videos of some of the children speaking to him and talking about how they also wanted to be journalists. And I think the weight of this news, it can immobilize us to our activism. I'm in Kensington in Johannesburg, and we've got a little Palestinian solidarity group here in Kensington. We've got about 150 odd people on our WhatsApp group, and we've done things like we've got a little roadside protest that happens once a week. In fact, today we've just cancelled it because of the rain. But sometimes we have 5-6 people showing up. It's like the struggle. We're becoming tired in the struggle. And for me, the question of our spirituality and our faith, and how do we get, as all of our people of faith, how do we get that spirituality that we can rise up again in the midst of this depression, in the midst of this hopelessness, to begin to speak with conviction, to strategize again? I almost feel the overwhelming feeling I'm experiencing among activists at the moment is we are tired. We are tired, and everything we're doing, nothing is working. And globally, we're seeing the rise of supremacist thinking. I'm looking at Trump in the US with the stuff that he's doing around the deportations. I mean, we in South Africa being punished because of our support of the ICJ case, and then they're making stories about Afrikaans and white refugees being in trouble. But for me, somehow we've got to find that spirituality that's going to help us to rise up again and continue to fight. I think we're going to have to find new strategies in our fighting. Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, this was going to be my next question to you. But what we'll do right now is we're going for a quick ad break. And when we come back, we will obviously define that in a lot more. And also together with that, just looking at how can faith-based institutions actually come together and stand up against this onslaught that we are facing right now.
Salam Media, your spiritual companion this Ramadan.
Freedom Stationery supply Marlin and Marlin Kids pens to me and my school friends. They supply just about everything we need to help us get a better education, from books to files to rulers. In fact, any any accessory we need. Freedom Stationery. Education for the nation. What does accessory mean?
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic, Sharia, and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
More than 800 million people around the world live in deep poverty, uncertain of where the next meal will come from. For those on the brink of starvation, a food pack means survival, dignity, and hope. Send food. Send kindness. Be the reason a family does not go hungry. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
You are listening to Salam Media live from our headquarters in South Africa. This is Salam Media, keeping you company this Ramadan.
Well, we continue our discussion on voices from Palestine in this segment brought to you together with the Palestine Solidarity Alliance and my guest this afternoon, Pastor Nigel Branken, and we are talking about faith-based activism. And I think this is important because as we were talking, Pastor, we know that the occupation has had an impact on people right across the board, irrespective of what religion you are in that part of the world. We've seen it now in the month of Ramadan, where many people from around the world in South Africa also go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. But we've also learned that many have been turned away, actually. They've actually been sent home packing. We see what has taken place over Christmas as well and how Christians have been impacted. We've seen what has taken place in Gaza, where we're talking about churches, mosques. There is no distinction between one religious site to another religious site. And all of this put together tells us that this occupation has had a huge impact on people in general, people as a whole. And yet, we see this growing phenomenon of, in the United States in particular, Christian Zionism growing. And not only in the name of Christianity, but becoming a right-wing fascist movement in every sense of the word.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think, to be honest, more and more I'm thinking it's going to be very difficult to convince them anything. We can talk to their theology, we can show them how their theology is not rooted in our holy scriptures. But I think that for me today, what I really want to focus on, that I think is an important message across our faiths, is the kind of spirituality we need. And I think we need a spirituality that does a couple of things. I think, first of all, we need a spirituality that remembers. And if we think of all of our sacred texts, doesn't matter if you Muslim, Christian, or Jew, our texts are rooted in stories. I've got this poster I thought I'd just show it to you. It says, "We know their names, we hold their stories." I don't know if it's mirrored here on the thing, but I have this poster up in my office here because I think we need to consistently be listening to the stories of people. We need to remember people like that little girl killed in that car, Hind Rajab.
Yeah. Hind Rajab, yes.
The stories of, we need to remember the names of the journalists, this journalist now for Al Jazeera, I think his name was Hassan Shabat, and
yes.
then Mohammed Mansour. We need to listen to their names, listen to their stories, and the more we allow our spirituality to be remembered, to have these stories. I think that's why our Holy Scriptures told stories, is because stories relate to us and they have parables inside of us, and that compels us to act in different ways. Then I think we also need a spirituality that feels deeply. We've got to resist this numbness inside of us. So I mean, doing this mind exercise that I talked about, we've got to let the tears roll. We've got to find a way to have the tears flowing in us again, because and then from that we also need, out of those tears, the empathy, the compassion that comes from that, then we need to begin to have our Christianity that begins to disrupt, and our spirituality that disrupts. Whether Jesus, there's this incredible story of him overturning the tables. I spoke about it on Sunday briefly. Just the Jesus who goes into the temple and is tired of this capitalist system and the exploitation and stuff that's happening, and disrupt. We've got to have a Christianity and a spirituality, and whether it's Jews, Muslims, or Christians, or whatever your faith tradition is, we've got to use it to disrupt. We want to disrupt empire. We want to disrupt the systems that continue to oppress and hold, and the kind of faith that is so caught up in power and linked to power. And then, of course, I think that it's so important here is a spirituality as well that connects us to one another. So I think one of the things I've really loved in our neighborhood is this connection of our Kensington Palestine Solidarity Group. Every neighborhood needs that kind of connection. We have Muslims, Jews, and Christians, all as well as people who of no faith tradition, and getting to know each other, working together for justice. We've got to build those solidarity movements in our neighborhoods that resist empire. The struggle in Palestine is a struggle for the liberation of the world. It's the same struggle that we're fighting in Palestine. We're fighting it in South Africa. We're fighting it against American empire. We're fighting it against the lies that are being told. We need a spirituality that is going to remember, that is going to feel, that is going to disrupt, that's going to connect us, and we need a spirituality that's going to sustain us. And to sustain us when we're tired, when we're grieving, we need to take time out. We need to look after ourselves. On Sunday, in our church meeting, what we did was we put candles out. I put up some of these posters, like this poster I've got behind me, ceasefire everywhere now. I put tables out. I put some pamphlets out that people could walk around and just kind of experience what was happening around the world. There was a table that dealt with the war that's happening all over. There was a table that dealt with the cutting of aid, and I've got friends who now are beginning to develop symptoms because of TB, because of the cutting of AIDS programs, the cutting of funding. This is all linked to each other as we're seeing this global empire really wanting to enforce its power everywhere. And so we need to take time out and just reflect and become whole and breathe again and let ourselves breathe. And from that space, I feel like we're going to be able to strategize a lot better. We're going to be able to sustain ourselves a lot better. And that's going to give us more impact, because this thing's not going away quickly. You know, when it first started happening, I've been involved in this probably 20, 30 years now that I've been standing, and of course have become more active since the October events.
Yes.
And I think we've all been woken up since the October events, because the escalation of the violence that's taken place by empire. But we've got a long battle to go. It's everywhere. It's in everything. It's going to be hard. We've got to make sure that we're going to be fresh. And
Well, certainly, you're right. In fact, Pastor, I think, look, obviously it is a long battle, but when one looks at this battle in South Africa, and one thing we're not short of is leadership across all faiths. And, we look at South Africa, we've got the Muslim community, we've got the various Muslim organizations as well, the Palestine solidarity groups as well. We're looking at personalities across South African Jews for a Free Palestine from the Jewish community. We look at people like yourselves. In the past, we had Bishop Tutu. We have people like the Reverend Ellen Busak, who I interviewed the other day, the Reverend Frank Chikani from the Christian faith. So what I'm saying is, across multiple faiths, and also at the same time added to that, political parties, trade unions, all together. So what I'm saying is, from a leadership perspective, we've got leadership from right across the entire spectrum in South Africa. The key issue here is to mobilize all these faith-based organizations to actually come together to make an even bigger impact.
That's a massive task. On how to do that is going to be a massive challenge ahead. It is true that we've got this incredible resistance in South Africa. Maybe I could just tell what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks as well, as I've been listening to this radio station, Chai FM, or it's the Zionist radio station, and trying to understand, and even in South Africa, this is a South African radio station, and there's still so much resistance to so many lies that just continue to be fed. And I do think that we're going to have to be courageous and go into some of those spaces too and disrupt them. I've saw petitions going around this week of calls for South Africa to go back to the International Court of Justice and ask for additional provisional measures. I've seen petitions this week around or activism this week around asking the UN General Assembly to again look at peacekeeping forces in Palestine. And I think that we are privileged in South Africa that we've got such incredible leadership, such wisdom, and that leadership is not just rooted in the Palestinian struggle, it's rooted in the struggle for our own liberation in South Africa. So there's experience on how to liberate a country, experience on how to win these battles, We've got leaders who, not just, as you say, in the faith traditions. I mean, we've got people like Ronnie Castrol's and struggle veterans like that that's all they talk about. This is now their pulpit, that they talk about is Palestinian liberation, and they want to fight for it with everything that they've got. So that's spirituality that connects us across these traditions and across all of our differences, and says there is one thing that we're fighting for, and that's our common humanity. We want to see a free, liberated Palestine. We want to see we want to see dignity. We want to see no more children being killed. We want to see want to see this liberation that we've been talking about for so many decades.
Well, Pastor, I wish we had more time, but unfortunately, time is of the essence this afternoon for us right here on the media. But once again, an absolute pleasure having you with us, and I'm sure at some point in time we will touch base again as we normally do. And we appreciative that you've been part and parcel of the Voices from Palestine segment that we've been running throughout this month of Ramadan. And once again, thank you. Please take care and stay blessed.
Thank you for all the work that you do, and to your listeners, strength, and we're in this together. Thank you for everything that you do as well. Let's keep fighting.
We certainly will. Pastor Nigel Branken with us this afternoon, right here on Salam Media, part of our Voices for Palestine segment. We come back after the Asr Adhan in Salah, spiritual courts who will be talking to this afternoon. We're talking about their Ramadan campaigns. We'll be joined by founder of Spiritual Courts, Safia Musa.
Salam Media, your spiritual companion this Ramadan.
Allah